Hi folks, this is Dr. P to talk about the not invented here syndrome, which is poison to game designers. So what is the not invented here syndrome? It's something that affects people in all walks of life, but especially supervisors. And in that sense, that a game designer is also a supervisor of their game, it can happen with game designers. It's the tendency to think that ideas matter only when they come from here, from the designer or from the design team in this case. That if the idea comes from somebody else, it doesn't matter, it can't be good, it can't be used. Here's Wikipedia's summary. Not invented here, NIH, is the philosophical principle of not using third-party solutions to a problem because of their external origins. False pride often drives an enterprise to use less than perfect invention in order to save face by ignoring, boycotting, or otherwise refusing to use or incorporate obviously superior solutions by others. And this is the danger for a game designer, that there will be a good idea and they'll ignore it and their game will suffer as a result. Now we know that games are a lot more than ideas, but there are ideas in games. NIH is also a logical fallacy. It's a form of the ad hominem fallacy. Ad hominem roughly means to the person. An ad hominem argument tries to discredit an opinion or an idea or a conclusion because of the source, because it comes from a particular person and that particular person for some reason is unsuitable, then whatever they have suggested is unsuitable. This is entirely illogical. What matters is the quality or usefulness of the idea or the conclusion, not the source of it. So not invented here is fundamentally illogical. Consider playtesting. Game designers have to be good listeners. That's not only for ideas in general, but for any comments from playtesters. If you're not going to pay attention to what the playtesters say and do, why playtest? After all, you can listen and consider the idea as though it were your own without obligation to use it. And if the playtesters see that you're writing down the ideas and that you will consider them, they will be more willing to make suggestions. And that can't be bad. It can't be bad. Now, because games are activities, they're not passive like novels or movies, you just cannot figure it all out by yourself and get it right. You have to rely on other people as well. Now, Neil Gaiman, and I may not be pronouncing that right, is a famous science fiction author. American Gods and Good Omens are a couple of his books that I've read, and also Stardust, and the Stardust movie originates with him as well. So here's one of his 10 rules for writing fiction, and it applies to playtesting and to any ideas suggested by people who play or know your game. 5. Remember, when people tell you something's wrong or doesn't work for them, they are almost always right. When they tell you exactly what they think is wrong and how to fix it, they are almost always wrong. But even in the second occurrence, it's up to you to determine whether it's wrong or right, not just to discredit it out of hand. Here's a closely related comment from game designer Leland Williams. Having ideas that sound good is trivial. Having ideas that work is hard. Figuring out how to make those ideas work is being a game designer. Yet, she speaks of video game development teams. If you think having designers closes the door to good ideas coming from anywhere, then your process is fundamentally broken. And these comments and this screencast as a whole arose from a report that a fairly well-known mobile video game studio was laying off all of their game designers. Evidently, the producers were somehow going to design games using metrics. This is ridiculous, but they presented it as something that made sense. Clearly, their process was broken, and that's what she was talking about. And this all goes back to the point about being a wise man or not. Shakespeare, "The fool doth think he is wise, but the wise man knows himself to be a fool." More generally, the wise man is aware of how much he doesn't know and doesn't understand. If you're wise, you'll listen to what other people say and suggest about your game. If you're unwise, you'll ignore them. Again, that doesn't mean you need to use any or every suggestion, but you have to think about them as though you thought of it. As though you thought of it. And I'll say this also, if you find a designer who is absolutely sure that his view is always the best, then that designer may not be an expert designer at all. Real experts often talk about mitigating circumstances and depends, and real experts listen to people for other ideas because two heads are better than one. So, to summarize, you can never reject an idea because of where it comes from. It might actually work. Also, many heads are better than one, so use all those other heads, especially other developers, as much as you can. Thanks for listening.